Hi there, I'm Jess Steinbach with ActualTech Media, and I want to thank you all for joining us for this awesome Spotlight Series segment. Today, I'll be chatting with Nick King, Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Snowplow Analytics. Nick, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to start with the basics. Tell us about Snowplow.
Yeah, Snowplow is a behavioral data platform. And what we specialize in is creating data across multiple different sources and allowing customers to understand the behavior of their customers, of their systems, of different technologies, and use that to make predictions and drive insights across the company. And it's really the first step to driving a data-first organization. So we're seeing a lot of customers today take advantage of it. And we've been really lucky recently. We had a Series B where we raised $40 million from NEA. We've just had a really amazing run over the last couple of years as we've grown and supported a number of companies as they grow both in our open source and our commercial products. So great to have you here and excited to share some more.
That's amazing. Congratulations. High fives to the team. I want to dig in on a word you just said. You use the term data first organization. Can you talk to us about that and how is that different from data centric?
Yeah, I think over the last 5 years, we've seen teams get a lot more sophisticated as how they think about how they manage and deploy data to make decisions. And the way that we used to do that previously is we'd extract data from all these third-party systems and hope that we had these nuggets of gold inside this data. But when you really put data at the center of your decision-making, if you really think first about data exhaust is not always the best way or the most informative way of making those decisions. So what we're seeing today is customers are becoming a lot more sophisticated and being able to create their data, which allows them to have very specific data grammar, very specific insights to the way their customers and their business processes behave. And that means that inside their own data warehouse, they have really a truthful, accurate, predictive set of data that explains everything that happens in their business. And that has a secondary effect. When you move the data into this one master view of your organization, it becomes much easier to create data products, which are like basically tables that support how you work together and provide that data across the organization, but also data applications. And those applications can really inform and predict the way your customers might behave, whether you might have a stock outage at some point, how you personalize things. And so shifting from a data-centric to data-first organization really gives you as a business the power to sort of define your own path and collect and create that data that maybe those third-party systems couldn't provide in an accurate way. And it solves that problem of like kind of having to hunt around big data to find the gold. In a data-first approach, all of the data is predictive and representative of your business. So it totally changes the way you think about AI and ML as well.
Yeah. Okay. You used a term in there that I've seen on your site and I really like it. Can you talk about data exhaust?
Yeah. It's funny, like we always hear this thing about data is the new oil and this concept of data exhaust. And really all of those things are really saying that, there's this data that's a byproduct of a lot of systems we have. So as you work through things like Salesforce, different tools, that creates this large exhaust of data. And it was really a lot of the big data generation was all about collecting that data. But it's not like you dig a hole and oil data starts coming out of it. Someone somewhere has written some code that emits that data exhaust. And what we realize as we're going through the approach of thinking through how do we make this problem better? How do we stop the requirement for data engineering and data prep to be so mundane and painful? What we realize is that today's environments really allow you to create data deliberately. And when you do create data deliberately and you can maintain consistency, it means that from the moment something happens to the moment you go and make a decision off that data is accurate and meant for you. And data exhaust simply isn't built that way. No one knows who you are when they build these applications. They're just building that exhaust to kind of support their own systems. And that leads to noise, that leads to anomalies in the data, and that means you have to do a lot of refining. And so for us, we feel like rather than consuming exhaust, we'd much rather have customers create the specific data that represents their business. It's cleaner, it's nicer. No one likes a lot of exhaust. We like nice, clean data.
I love that. I'm picturing data oil wells now just popping up everywhere. Well, okay, so obviously not all data is created equal and it's important to have quality data. There's also different kinds of data. So can you talk to us about behavioral data, why that's important, and how it might differ from maybe what we're familiar with in terms of transactional or demographic data?
Yeah, I think as you look across how data is created or how you manage data, there's really 4 components that make up behavioral data. The first is what I call system data. So systems data is like what generated. Was it a mobile device? What was the different user agent that was delivering it? What created it? At what time was that created? And on the back of that, you also get what's called transactional data. So what actually happened? This was clicked, a system failed, something changed, a state changed. That's transactional data. Demographic data is interesting because what happens with demographic data is you then take that transaction and say, okay, who was this? Could I go back to a different system and understand who they were? Maybe you have some information that maybe identifies them somewhat, but you can go over time and use that data to be more accurate as to who that person was and customize that experience. And that's what we call demographic data. But really the coup de grace of data is when you create what's called behavioral data. Behavioral data starts to link these events together. That's effectively the graph of like, okay, what are all the different things that happened to have this end result? So I'll give you an example. So sometimes you might be browsing on your phone to go shopping for something. Say it's a pair of glasses and you want to try them on. So you download the app and you kind of show it on your face, you get the filter, you get the glasses and like, these look awesome. Then you go into the store and you go and buy those glasses. So in that example, there's three very discrete ways that behavior was being tracked and managed. If you were using traditional data exhaust approach, you'd have three sets of data and you'd be doing complicated stitching. You'd be trying to do invasive ways of trying to figure out who that person was. When you do it with data creation, you put it inside a first party approach, you're able to elegantly stitch all those together and do so in an accurate way. And so you basically see that one user through all three of those steps come together and you can be much more informative. So you might change your in-store experience based on what someone has been doing in VR. Or you might even start to link up your website more to think about the store experience so the VR experience is more enriched. And so that behavioral data is really the next generation of how we think about predicting and optimizing customers have the best outcome.
Okay, I want to explore some of those real world examples a little bit more too, because it's awesome to think about data mining, data in the cloud. But how are we actually seeing this? How is this coming into our day-to-day lives? You know, I think personalization is sort of what you were just mentioning. You know, where is this data in use for us?
Yeah, there's so many outcomes you can drive when you have this. So I think one that we all understand is advanced analytics. So it's things like personalization, understanding who might be engaging you and what they might be wanting to experience. It could also be around ad optimization and campaign optimization. I think all of us are looking at how do we get the right ad in front of the right person. But that also shifts into another type of use case and outcome we see, which we call composable CDP or a composable customer data platform. And customer data platforms are really about trying to create a 360 view of all the different customer touch points you have. And that could be inside your own business, what the customer experiences of you. But if you can understand all those touch points, you can give the customer a much better experience. You can be much more efficient on your side of the business. And if you've got that data in a way that's very accurate and near real time, you can also start to build what we call activations off the back of that. So remember I talked about that person coming into the store? What happens if they buy something? Could you then fire up the app and say, hey, did you like those glasses? Maybe you should try these other pair and we'll give you a discount if you come back and buy the second pair. So you can start to do these wonderful integrated experiences on the back of these composable custom CDP platforms. The other great thing with composable is that it means it will work within your existing infrastructure. So if you use Databricks or Snowflake, all this will just plug in and work with it. So it just means less changes for you and much more sophistication in how you're engaging your customers.
That's pretty cool. And I was thinking a little bit about, you know, data being such a hot issue right now. And so are things like AI, ML, BI. So can you talk to us a little bit about why these things are trending and how they're all connected right now?
Yeah, I think when you get into the difference between AI and ML versus business intelligence, there's some real subtle differences as how you prepare that data to drive real insights. And today, the way you do that is you'd really have parallel systems, which adds complexity. You've got to have these different teams. But when you build your data in a data first or a data creation approach with Snowplow, what happens is you create an atomic table of all the different events. And then you can do what's called modeling. And modeling allows you to create either a metric table, which is common for BI use cases, or a feature table, which is common for AI and ML use cases. So without the need to create multiple pipelines, what you can do is actually use that atomic data to model out the most accurate way to support those different downstream use cases. And that means you get much more accurate results in the ML side. And on the BI side, it become much faster at using those metric tables to feed other systems. And you don't have to have all the extra complexity of multiple teams trying to maintain that. And then what happens when you try to do multiple teams is you often find the two teams really struggle to bring together the same result because they use different source data. So it really unifies the decision-making across the organization as well.
Well, okay, we are running a bit short on time, but there are so many interesting ways to use this data and Snowplow. Give us like one of your favorite examples of where this can come into the real world.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite examples is a company called Software.com. And what they do is they really focus on how you develop software. And so many of us have probably heard of flow state. That's the state where time changes and you're really focusing. And what they do is they use this behavioral data to help engineers really optimize when they could be working on things, what's the right way for them to get the best results and the best performance. And because this exists, it means that engineers are far more productive, their customers are way happier, and all of it comes from using a secure way of tracking this behavior and supporting it with like new modern ways to help them stay in flow state. So I think that's pretty cool. Definitely on the cusp of how you use behavioral data to really not just understand people's behavior, but also support their best behaviors and make sure they can be more efficient.
Oh man, I love that idea of tracking flow state. I'm really curious about that. Nick, this has been such an interesting discussion. I thank you so much for being here and telling us a bit more about Snowplow. Yeah,
it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And for our audience, if you would like to explore some more about what we were just chatting about today, go and visit snowplowanalytics.com. Learn more, book a demo, really great site, lots of awesome info. So I highly recommend checking that out. And if you want to see some more spotlight segments like these, head on over to the ActualTech Media YouTube channel at youtube.com/ActualTech Media. There's a whole playlist for you there with more awesome videos like this. So head on over and check them out. And that's everything we've got today. Thank you again to Nick for sharing some awesome ideas. A very special thank you to all of us for watching this Spotlight Series segment. I hope we'll see you all again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.